In a shocking turn of events that has the entire evangelical world gasping, Donnie Swaggart's ex-wife has broken her silence. After years of quiet compliance and whispered rumors, she's finally come forward with the truth about why she divorced Donnie, what really went down behind the walls of the Swaggart empire, and the untold secrets that could bring the entire ministry to its knees. This isn't just a story of a failed marriage, it's a story of control, manipulation, power, and a legacy built on shaky moral ground. Let's peel back the curtain. The public image versus the private pain. From the outside, Donnie Swaggart, the only son of legendary televangelist Jimmy Swaggart, looked like the golden boy of Pentecostal preaching. He carried the legacy of a global ministry, delivered sermons with fervent conviction, and stood beside his father on the pulpit like a loyal heir. But behind the scenes, a different story was unfolding, one that his ex-wife, Debbie, could no longer ignore. They were married, divorced, remarried, and then divorced again. Many followers believed it was all a matter of personal struggle, a difficult marriage, perhaps some irreconcilable differences. But Debbie now reveals that the truth was far darker and more twisted. I was silenced, I was shamed, and I was told if I ever spoke out, I would be destroying the church. But what they never told you was what he did to destroy me. The perfect son wasn't so perfect. Debbie paints a picture of a man torn between expectation and reality. She says Donnie was never prepared for the weight of his father's empire, and that pressure turned into anger, jealousy, and eventually emotional abuse. She describes years of gaslighting, manipulation, and pressure to perform as the perfect preacher's wife, even when she was suffering in silence. And Donnie you see on stage isn't the Donnie I lived with, she says. Behind closed doors, he was someone else entirely. She details moments of betrayal, verbal assaults, and emotional isolation. She speaks of being treated as a pawn in the family's public image, paraded when needed and discarded when she showed signs of struggle. The money trail. According to Debbie, money was a major part of the Swaggart household, not just the earning of it, but the obsession with it. She claims she witnessed questionable financial practices and was deeply disturbed by the ministry's relentless pursuit of donations, especially from elderly, poor, and vulnerable followers. I saw letters that broke my heart, she says. People sending their last dollars, believing it would buy them healing or salvation. And Donnie? He never flinched. Donnie's secret relationship. Debbie also alludes to a relationship Donnie allegedly had while they were separated, a woman who would eventually become his second wife, Judy. It wasn't just a fling, she says, it was a betrayal. While I was trying to hold our family together, he had already moved. Donnie's marriage to Judy was brief, and ultimately ended in divorce, but the wound it left on Debbie was deep. She says Donnie tried to reconcile again, not because he loved her, but because the ministry needed the family image restored. It was about optics, that's all. They didn't care about my heart, they cared about the headline. When she finally left for good, the final straw, she says, came when Donnie tried to pressure her into signing a non-disclosure agreement. They wanted to shut me up. They wanted me to disappear. But I couldn't live that lie anymore. Debbie walked away, from the marriage, the ministry, the empire. And she stayed silent for years. Until now. The aftermath. Since her departure, Debbie has lived a quiet life. But watching the Swaggart ministry continue, unchallenged and unchecked, made her realize she needed to speak out. This isn't about revenge, this is about truth. If just one person is saved from what I went through, then it's worth it. She says she's not afraid anymore. She's not intimidated by the Swaggart name, the legal threats, or the spiritual manipulation. They preach about Judgment Day. Well, let this be theirs. What this means for the Swaggart empire. The fallout could be massive. Already, whispers are turning into headlines. Former members are coming forward. Old staffers are nodding in agreement. Could this be the beginning of the end for Jimmy Swaggart Ministries? Only time will tell. But one thing is clear, Debbie has cracked open a door that's been bolted shut for decades. And the truth is finally spilling out. Share this story if you believe in truth, justice, and the courage it takes to stand against giants. The world deserves to know what really happens behind the velvet curtains of fame, faith, and falsehood. This story is still developing. More details coming soon. He preached one thing, but lived another. In an emotional live stream watched by nearly 2 million viewers within 24 hours, Debbie Swaggart began by simply stating, "I've been quiet long enough." With trembling hands and tears in her eyes, she spoke of a life hidden behind spotlights and sermons, behind church smiles and scripted prayers, a life, she claims, of emotional manipulation, spiritual abuse and systematic silencing. "People think I left because I was weak. No. I left because I couldn't keep protecting his image while mine was dying." From the outside, the Swaggart ministry seemed like a fortress, untouchable, ordained, anointed. But Debbie reveals the cracks that had been growing for years beneath the golden chandeliers and $1,000 suit. A marriage built on appearances. Debbie and Donnie first married in the 1980s, during a time when the Swaggart empire was still recovering from the moral scandals that rocked Jimmy Swaggart's legacy. According to Debbie, the pressure to appear perfect was immense. We weren't allowed to be real. We were props in a holy theater. She claims their marriage began to unravel due to Donnie's coldness, long absences, and an obsession with keeping up appearances rather than building a real connection. He could preach about love on Sunday and not speak a word to me on Monday. Debbie describes nights spent alone in their mansion, while Donnie was either preaching out of state or locked away in his study, allegedly ignoring her and their son Gabriel. The second marriage, a media distraction. The first divorce came quietly. The Swaggart family refused to speak about it publicly, and Debbie was slowly erased from broadcasts, photos and ministry events. Then, without warning, Donnie remarried another woman, a name still shrouded in secrecy. They used that marriage to distract people. It didn't even last long. It was a cover. According to Debbie, the second marriage was arranged hastily, meant to protect Donnie's reputation and maintain the church's strict image of purity and order. But the marriage fell apart quickly, and with little fanfare, Donnie returned to Debbie. The public saw it as romantic. The prodigal couple reunited. But Debbie tells a darker tale. They asked me to come back, not because he loved me, but because the ministry couldn't afford another scandal. The secret clause. In one of the most explosive parts of her testimony, Debbie holds up a document she claims is a non-disclosure agreement she was forced to sign upon remarrying Donnie. They wanted me silent. They wanted me pretty. They wanted me submissive. The contract, according to her, included clauses preventing her from speaking about Donnie's private behavior, family finances, and any behind-the-scenes disagreements that might damage the Swaggart brand. I was gagged for years. Now I don't care what they do. I'm done. The role of Frances Swaggart. Debbie alleges that Frances Swaggart, Donnie's mother, played a crucial role in controlling the narrative. Frances ran the show. She told Donnie who to marry, who to fire, even how to preach. According to Debbie, Frances saw her not as a daughter-in-law, but as a pawn, someone who could be controlled to keep the illusion intact. When she resisted, she was pushed out. Frances told me to stay in my place more than once. I didn't know that place was silent. Debbie goes further, claiming Frances once threatened to cut Donnie out of the will if he didn't clean up the mess. Gabriel's pain. Debbie also opened up about her son, Gabriel Swaggart, and the toll all this took on him. Gabe was just a boy caught between a father's ego and a ministry's image. She claims Gabriel saw and heard more than the public will ever know, that he watched as his mother cried behind closed doors, saw the coldness in the home, and was raised to never question authority, even if that authority was cruel. I pray for Gabe every day. He's not evil, but he's trapped.